guys, Brian with Cajun Cardboard coming at you from the great state of Louisiana that is infested with pollen right now. And I am super excited to welcome a guest to the show today. It's very few and far between where we have guests on the show, but I'm welcoming Jake Roy with 90's Bball Cards to the show. This is his second appearance on the show. Jake, thanks for coming along. Appreciate it, my friend.
Always a pleasure. Happy to join my Cajun brother.
Before we hit the record button, we were having a pollen/allergy contest between Massachusetts and South Louisiana. And it sounds like we have some of the same stuff falling from the trees and affecting both of our allergies. It hits me once a year, Jake. Once a year I deal with this. The mouth itches, the eyes, I want to scratch them out. My nose swells. Once a year it happens. It sounds like you're getting hit with it right now.
Oh yeah, the itchy eyes are the worst for me. But I'm like one of those people who's like constantly congested at some level, but you can hear it a little bit more now. So sorry for that.
Well, look, I always just assumed anybody who watched your channel would watch mine, and who would watch mine would watch yours, and whoever watches ours would watch the crossover. But I'm finding out after being in this content creation space for about 15 months now, I've been in it for about 15 months. There's not as much overlap as you would think. So I want to make sure at the outset people know who you are, what you're about, but also I want to make sure they know where to find you. So look, I'm going to screen share right here. This is Jake's IG page. He has 90's _Bball _cards, all lowercase letters. You can't miss him. He's got about 5,443 followers. He's a great follow on Instagram. And he talks about vintage baseball cards almost all the time. No, I'm just kidding. He talks about 90's basketball cards almost all the time, which if you're watching me right now, you're going to be really excited he's here, because Jake's been doing this a hell of a lot longer than I've been doing it. And when I say it, I mean collecting 90's basketball cards. Jake, I just transitioned into 90's stuff, into Jordan stuff primarily, probably in late right before COVID. What is that? Late 2019. You've been collecting 90's stuff since the 90's.
Yep. Yeah, it's a labor of love for me, and something that I, sometimes it's also just like I can't teach an old dog new tricks. I've been doing 90's, so why change? Yeah.
Well, it's easy. It's so easy to talk about something you're passionate about. It's easy to talk about stuff you know better than 99.9% of the world. And you do. I can tell you that all the time. I'll watch your channel, and I'm going to switch over to your YouTube channel. This is Jake's YouTube channel. Same thing, 90's Bball Cards. Easy to find. If you're not subscribed, go right now and subscribe to it. It's super easy. It's a fun watch. Jake, you do lots of top 10 lists. You do lots of not top 10 go buy this list, which I can't stand, but top 10 things you like, or top 10 cards under the radar, or top 10 cards under a certain price that you can look into. Very suggestive content, which is kind of how I like to treat content creation. I like to suggest people go check this out. It may be for you. It may not be for you, but it's for me. And so I'll just share what I like. And sometimes people like it. Sometimes people disagree. And that's great. And that's what this is all about. You do lots of pack rips, which of course people absolutely love. I don't do as much of that. I wish I did. I'm just too stingy, and I just hate losing, Jake. I just can't stand losing. But you do tons of great 90's pack rips. I think a lot of people would love to, and this is off topic, but a lot of people would love to rip 90's wax, but I worry about bricking and sticking and paper loss and things like that. How do you mitigate that? Is there any special rhyme or reason? Or, I mean, products, so you know which products are glossy and will stick and whatnot, but is that some of that just out of your control?
Yeah, a lot of it is. I mean, I've had stuff where like I've opened, like 4 or 5 packs of the same stuff, and 2 packs will brick and 2 packs won't. And it's anybody's guess as to why. I mean, a lot of people will say, and I think this is probably true, it depends on like how they're stored, humidity, all that kind of stuff. Okay. But when you're opening stuff that's 20, 30 years old, you really don't know a lot of that, where it's been, how it's been stored, how it's been handled. So it's really anybody's guess. Sometimes you can kind of feel it before you open the pack, but I mean, if you're buying something online, you can't touch the pack before you get it in hand. So
yeah, there's no way. And it kind of adds to the allure and the mystique of the 90's, man, I think. And it sucks when you do it. So my first experience with that was, and I opened it on the channel. Is it 93 Skybox Premium that has the center stage insert?
Yes. Yeah.
So I'm ripping a box of 93 Skybox Premium, the very first pack, Jake. I mean, it's like
Oh yeah.
every card, like you could literally hold the cards like this. They weren't going anywhere every single pack. And wouldn't you know it, I pulled the Jordan center stage.
Sure.
And so I've actually got it sitting over here on my monitor as a reminder. Don't buy 90s wax. Let Jake buy 90s wax. You can watch him, live vicariously through him. Let him take the risk. And so I've got this paper loss center stage, which is supposed to be this beautiful black surface, with just Jordan. It's white. It's pretty much half white, half black. So not what God intended.
I think it was either like the first or second, quote unquote season of my show that I was opening 99 2000 Skybox Premium. So Skybox Premium again, different year. And the cards were sticking pretty badly. And I ended up hitting one of my like kind of side PC guys, a Baron Davis Ruby, and it's his rookie year. Yeah. And it's got paper loss all over it, but it's one of those cards that I love. I actually sent it off to CSG. It got a 4.5 because of all the paper loss, which is fine by me. Pop one, many higher.
Yes, so, most higher. In fact, all higher. Yeah.
All higher. Yeah,
pop one, all higher. We
pop
just
one,
created
none lower, probably.
We created a new term. Pop one, all higher. None lower is what it should say. Pop one, none lower. Tell us about, and we're going to get into tons of 90 stuff. We're going to talk about your collection, how you collect, how you attack 90 stuff, because people want to know, because you've been doing this for so long. You got so much expertise in the area. Tell me about you, Jake Roy, the person, right? Let's talk about you. Let's talk about your family, your upbringing, college educations, all that stuff. Go through all that stuff. I know you hoop for a little bit, and you still play a little pickup ball, and I know you'd like to get out and play a little bit.
Not as much as I'd like, but yeah. So, I was born in, no. We don't need to go that far back.
Don't go that far back.
Yeah. So growing up, I grew up in rural New Hampshire. Okay. Anybody who knows New Hampshire, it's kind of redundant to say rural New Hampshire because it's all pretty rural. But quiet town, small. I went to a regional high school with 7 towns, and I think the total count of students was like just over 1,000. So I mean, small town upbringing. Yeah. But basketball, like you said, was a passion of mine from an early age. I started playing when I was probably 7 or 8, rec ball and stuff like that. So growing up, that was, everything I did. Most of my friends, that's, if we had free time, we're hooping, in the driveway, going to court, whatever. So did that all growing up, and found football later in life because like I'm a big guy, and a lot of coaches, when I was going through middle school and stuff, were like, you got to play football. Yeah. You got to play football. And I was just like, no, but I love basketball. And I was tall for my age all growing up. So it was like, there wasn't really any draw for me to switch. And my dad wasn't really too supportive of it because he played football growing up and he has a ton of injuries from it. So he was like, I don't think you really need to deal with that stuff. Yeah. Eventually I did, because, I stopped growing at some point, and I was, one of the top 2 tallest in my grade. And then all of a sudden I was, about average, a little bit above average. So, for basketball, that wasn't as great, and found that I love football as well. And I had a trainer who was trying to push me into trying to pursue, doing some prep school and then looking into college football. But it's just, it wasn't something that I was passionate about. I had other passions at that point. So, transitioning to college, got out of competitive sports, did intramurals, did a lot more physical training, got into really good shape. And that was fun to go back and play basketball with some of my, former high school teammates. And
superpowers. I did the same thing. You feel like somebody blessed you with superpowers when you actually, gain good muscle. It's like people are bouncing off of you instead of vice versa. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I always knew how to use my body, because I still had a big body, but now it's a little bit more, refined. So it was fun to do that. But again, it was just stuff that we do for fun. Won an intramural championship in college, so that was fun stuff. But transitioning out of college, went to grad school. There were girls in the midst, but started dating my now wife. Mm-hmm. So kind of getting into more adult type stuff, and eventually got married, had a family, got 2 kids now. And cards were kind of always in the background of my life. Mm-hmm. At some, at times it was more prominent than others. And then eventually, my wife and I were talking, and one thing led to another, and she encouraged me. I was thinking about starting some content, and she was like, yeah, that could be fun for you. So, as they say, the rest is history.
Did you first of all, where'd you go to college and where'd you go to grad school?
Yeah, so I went to college, undergrad and grad at the same place, Western New England. It's called university. When I was there, it's college, so people call it Winnick.
Okay, yeah. And what's your major? I mean, what's your graduate degree in?
Yeah, so my graduate it's a general MBA. So my undergrad was in business administration, but a concentration in sport management.
Got it.
So anybody who knows kind of that field, I did a lot of research when I was in high school. A lot of sport management degrees are in different schools. At Winnick, they really specialized in sport management. It was a pretty highly rated program. Because it's a business degree first and foremost, with a concentration essentially in sport management. And a lot of sport management gets into, really event management and planning. A lot of it has to do with that, as well as the financial aspect of it. So, as you get into your, junior and senior year, you start to focus more in on some of those specifics. So like the law courses and the finance courses and the planning courses are all geared more towards sport related stuff.
Yeah.
But because you already have that general foundation of business administration. So then graduate school, I went for my MBA, and they had an MBA in sport, but it was, I was like one of two people that were interested in it. So they ended up saying, just go for the general MBA. It's more applicable. And there's really not that much difference between the two. So
I was supposed to get my MBA, and then I got a speeding ticket. I was going too fast. Don't ask how fast. The night before the GMAT, they took my driver's license, and I used that as a convenient way to not take the GMAT. And then a couple months later, decided to go to law school. So I ended up taking the LSAT and did the law route, which was not something I expected. It was an interesting twist in my life. So interesting stuff. But so all this time, right? We've gone through your backstory. Did you ever take a complete, or were you ever completely out of cards, or they were always there? There was always a purchase here or there. You never took time off. Like I took two separate decades off. There's two huge 10-year gaps in my collecting career.
Yeah, I mean, the most that I would go is, months without any cards. Because, if I was at school, I wasn't buying cards and, stashing them in my apartment or dorm room. So when I was home on, whether it was a holiday break or a summer break, that's when I would, go to Walmart, go to, whatever department store I could find some retail product and rip. There was one hobby shop that I went to pretty regularly throughout the years that was about an hour away. So it was, it's kind of a pilgrimage that would go a couple times. And that's when my brother and I would get into some of the more, hobby related stuff. And, it was fun to kind of dabble, because the owner got to know us a little bit. So he would talk to us about stuff that he thought we would be interested in. My brother's interest in what he wanted to rip was very different than mine. So he got a little bit more experimental with, like, some of the, I'm trying to think, like Top Signature and some of the Bowman products and some of the stuff that was encased, and he liked that stuff, and the one hit per pack, whereas I was going more for the design aesthetics rather than the memorabilia and autos.
You talk about your brother a lot on the channel, and I know y'all have a kind of parallel collecting, and y'all sound really close to it. Have you ever brought him on the channel? Did I miss it? Has he ever been on your channel?
No. Well, yes and no. So in the early years, he would rip packs with me. He is adamant against being on camera other than his hands. So you'll hear his voice sometimes and see his hands. But he will not show his face on camera.
He's lurking in the shadows. Because I always hear you talk about it. I was like, I wonder if he ever brought, maybe I missed it. Maybe I didn't see it in your playlist. Maybe I missed it. But Jake, for those of you who haven't figured it out by now, has the greatest backdrop in the content creating space. And I have the worst. So Jake's got like 1,000 stories behind him that he could tell about what's behind him. I just got this banner that I had some guy in Baton Rouge make for me with my logo. So,
what's funny about that is when you told me that that's a cypress tree behind you, I always assumed, because you're Cajun cardboard, that was a jalapeno
or an avocado. I hear avocado. It's a cypress tree.
It looks more jalapeno to me, but it's funny because like I have some family from Louisiana, and I know how important the cypress trees are to the ecosystem there, and we actually have some cypress knees that we've made into like lampshades and stuff like that. So
Yep. There's
not
tons of
lampshades, lamp posts, I guess you would call them. Right?
Yep. We have a cypress. Our office, my closing room, conference room table is made pure cypress.
Yep.
I mean, there's a lot of really cool cypress stuff that's done down here. All right, let's talk about cards. Let's talk about just give us 50 words or less. If you had to describe your collection, your PC, tell me about your PC. We know, well, I know, but the viewers might not. Penny is a massive part of it. Massive part of it. Penny Hardaway. But tell us, generally speaking, 50 words or less. Talk to me.
All right, I'll try to keep it brief. So Penny Hardaway, 90s, with a sprinkle of some other nostalgic players: Allen Iverson, KG, Vince Carter, Michael Finley, Lamar Odom, Baron Davis, and that's it.
That's cool. I got a chance to play against Michael Finley in a 3-on-3 tournament, and he's a lot bigger than you would think.
Yeah,
he's a lot bigger than me.
6'7" not short.
Yeah, he's like 6'7", 220 too.
Yeah.
So I was definitely looking up at him, and I did not enjoy any physical contact with him. He was an absolute monster. He was a fantastic player, man. You and I go back and forth. We talk about guys that were and you just named a lot: Baron Davis, Antonio McDyess, Finley. Mitch Richmond gets a little bit of credit. Obviously, he's in the Hall of Fame, but the others don't. Some of those guys, people forget, like some of these guys were like perennial all-stars or fringe all-stars at least, but maybe never had the team success. But Finley was awesome. Also a great dunk contest participant. Finley was fantastic.
He was also in a three-point shootout. I mean, he had the total package. And a teammate of his, thinking back to some of my basketball days in New Hampshire, so the pride and joy of New Hampshire basketball is Matt Bonner, who played for the Spurs with Finley.
The Red Rocket.
So I went to a couple of his camps, but we had the same trainer. So the guy who I trained with during the season, during the off season, he'd come back and train with him. So, I had the privilege of training with Matt a few times.
That's awesome.
And it really gave me an appreciation, just thinking about basketball in general. Matt Bonner, a lot of people will clown on him and he was probably one of the least athletic NBA players at his time. And to see in person in training his athleticism, the level of athleticism that he had, he ran circles under anybody. And I played against some really good teams. I know I don't look it now, but I did. And he ran circles around anybody that I had faced. And he was a turnstile defensively in the NBA. So it's just like, when I look at guys like Gerald Green, and I see how athletic he is, and I know how athletic Matt is, I'm like, I can't imagine. I can't imagine like in high school trying to play against a guy like that. Yeah,
and look, Matt Bonner's, his role is it's not to stop the other team; it's to score more than the guy he's guarding. Like he's going to give him up, but if he makes every open three, I got to believe that guy in an empty gym. And I've been around some really exceptional shooters in my time and coached a few as well. But I got to believe Matt Bonner from the NBA 3-point line in the empty gyms right at 90%. I don't think he's going to miss very many open threes.
Yep.
He had a great career, man. Made tons of money, so no doubt about that. Your 90s Bball cards. So we know you collect those. What about you? Do you dabble at all in baseball, football, hockey, anything?
So I'll rip pretty much anything I can get my hands on. If I have the itch. So if I go to Walmart and I have the itch to rip something, I'll look at what's there. And sometimes there's not any basketball, so I'll rip that stuff. Yeah. But as far as like collecting, the only other thing is Mason Crosby from the Packers.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So he's only in Prism 2019. That's the only Prism set that he's in. He's in some other stuff, but so trying to track down some of his better Prism parallels has been a fun chase. There's some other fun stuff that I can get into with Mason Crosby as well, but that's about it.
Jake, if anybody ever accuses you of being a pump and dump or an investor type, your response needs to be, have you seen my Mason Crosby rainbow?
Right.
Right. You've got a built-in answer for anybody who accuses you of any wrongdoing from the investor perspective. That's freaking awesome. I love it. What happens? So what happens? You go to Target, you rip some baseball, you rip some football. Where does it go? Does it just go in a closet at your house, or do you try to move it on eBay if you pull something that's a $50 car? I mean, where does it go from there?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's something that I've been trying to change my mindset around, because for a long time, it would go in a box and it would sit there, and every once in a while I'd look at it and be like, oh yeah, I remember I hit this card. So very recently I started setting up at the Springfield show, and it's a quarterly show. So that was an opportunity for me to bring some of that stuff out, which is fun because the thrill of pulling out of the pack is enough for me, but seeing it with a collector who's actually going to love it and appreciate it, and I haven't hit anything. I think one of my bigger cards, I hit like a second year Topps Heritage of Aaron Judge, what's that, $5 or $10 card.
Yeah.
I hit Topps Chrome had a platinum anniversary edition this summer. I hit a Tim Lincecum out of 5. So that was a pretty nice hit, but it's like I was trying to find Tim Lincecum collectors online.
Good luck.
Yeah. I ended up finding one at the show, which was nice. But yeah, so that's one of the things I've been doing. Or, I've got some friends who collect, specific teams. So if I hit like, Detroit Tigers card, for example, I'll put it aside for my buddy. Yeah.
That's cool.
So stuff like that. I try to find good homes for them because again, it's the thrill of ripping for me.
Yeah.
And then finding good homes for the places.
Can we, let's do this. You're more of a veteran than I am, but I've been around the block. Can we help our viewers? If you're watching this channel, I think Jake and I are on the same page. Buying retail, you are buying the experience. If you are buying retail with the intention, if you're new to this hobby, if you're watching my show for the first time, if you don't know who Jake is, you don't know anything about, buying wax, please, please, please do not buy retail products with the intention of, grading them and selling them for profit or just selling them for profit. It doesn't work out that way. It's like walking into a Vegas casino. It's not set up in your favor. It's set up very, very much against you. It's almost like buying a lottery ticket from the gas station. It really is that preposterous. So just a word of warning if you're new to the hobby and you're out there and you're watching the show. Let's talk about, and this is an interesting question. I like to ask people on my channel this question, right? Because I think I'm 60% collector, 40% investor. Maybe I'm actually tilting towards 70-30, maybe even that extreme. You are 99-1?
Maybe. Yeah,
Okay.
it's probably pretty hard for me to quantify.
Yeah.
In recent years, I've been going through, I have a lot of cards. Lot of cards.
Yeah.
And a lot of duplicates. And in recent years, I've been like, I don't need 2, 3, 4, 5 copies of this card. Just the one is fine. Or, I'll have an example of, a certain card of Penny, Iverson, and KG. And it's like, I don't need the Iverson and KG if I've got the Penny. So I've been trying to kind of move some of those. And then what that ends up doing is it makes room for new acquisitions to my collection. And, especially leading up to the National, I like to go there with, a comfortable bankroll that if I find something I can try to make a move on, as well as some pieces that I can trade. So that's been something I've been trying to move more into, but I can't think of many times that I buy a card, if any at all.
With the intention of,
exactly.
Yeah. And you're a rare breed, dude. And I'm telling you, what's even more interesting, and part of the reason I love your channel is you do have a PC. Obviously, Penny's your guy. But what you just said was brilliant. Is that you almost collect the card that Penny's on more so than Penny. Like, it could be, for instance, not to spoiler alert here, an Ultra Stars Gold. Like, you want the Ultra Stars Gold. You want an Ultra Stars Gold. If you can get Penny on it, you've got it. If you need to get KG or Iverson on it, you get that. You want the Ultra Stars Gold first. If Penny's on it, all the better, right?
Right.
And there is not many people out there who collect that way. They go from, and I'm including myself, I collect Jordan. I go from Jordan. I don't want a 97 red PMG of Antoine Walker. I want the 97 red Jordan. You know what I mean? Most people are like me. I think you're a very unique and rare breed, and it just shows the appreciation you have for all the different products, which leads us perfectly into the segue. We're going to start talking about some of your favorite stuff from the 90s. You've seen it all, man. And I'm telling you, it never fails. I'll see a new video of yours come up. I'll flip it on. You'll show a card and I'll be like, oh my God, what did he just show me? I've never even heard of the card you just showed me. I forget. I comment sometimes when I see it. And then of course, you know what I do next. I grab my phone, I go to eBay and I type in and then I'll type in like Shaq or Jordan just to see if they're in the set or whatever. So tell me your favorite. We'll talk about product, then we'll talk about insert set, then we'll talk about parallel. What is your favorite basketball product? Like just product, like, a certain year, a certain product.
Yep. I would say my number one favorite product, again, just design based, is the 1997 SPX set.
Yes.
So it's kind of like an off-season set, but I love those die cuts and their use of holograms.
Yep.
Just phenomenal. And every single, all the base cards, all the parallels, all the inserts, all share the exact same die cut. So when you're, people would talk in the 90s about trying to feel packs and stuff like, you could feel those packs because there was one card per pack, which is also a very unique thing. You would have no idea, so you're pulling that Jordan, and when you're touching the pack, it feels the exact same as a base Joe Dumars.
Yeah.
Or it would feel the exact same as the promotion Jordan. Mm-hmm. So, I thought that was a really cool thing, but they're just also gorgeous cards. I don't know if we can see it, but I've got the Penny up there, and I don't know how many copies of that card I have, but it was just like so many memories of trying to find that gold Penny. And then the Hall of You hero set that you have right there is my favorite insert set design out of any in the 90s.
Dude, SPX it's the one card from the 90s where if you've even spent not even necessarily years, but just months buying 90s stuff or looking up 90s cards, SPX is far and away the most unique product. And I'm talking about base cards and everything. I mean, it's like when you see it, you're like, it looks like a spaceship. I mean, it doesn't look traditional. Like they did everything possible to make a card that is undeniably distinct and unique. Even the base cards. The base cards look like they should be $10,000, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're just so different. And I don't think there's a square. Is there a rectangular SPX card, or is every single one die cut?
The first year that they did truly standard SPX set was 99-2000.
Okay.
The first year without Jordan, he was in some of the insert sets. But yeah, the first year of SPX was 96. And it's an interesting set also because, usually for basketball cards, like you think of Kobe Bryant's rookie year, 96, 97, right? They follow the seasons. These were an off-season release for the first 2 years. So that 96 set is, KG's first card. So it's technically not a rookie, but a lot of times you'll see those cards go for more because it's the first SPX. So that Kobe right there that you're showing, a lot of people will list it on eBay as a Kobe Bryant rookie. And technically they're wrong, but technically they're also still right, so it's like it's hard to tell somebody that they're wrong on that one. Which I think is an interesting nuance. They switched it the next year. So for Tim Duncan's rookie year, they're 97, 98. They're an in-season release, late in the season, but in season. So
by the way, Jake, what the hell are we looking at on the screen? What is
dude, I don't know what you just pulled up. I'm gonna ignore.
It's from my personal selection.
Of my screen. Yes, I know you've been getting into some of these funky colors and stuff.
Pure Graded X. Yeah, I don't know if you could read it, but this grading company is called Pure Graded X, and apparently they're tough graders because they gave this one a 5. So,
and that's an interesting thing too that I've heard with the 97 SPX set is it's very hard to grade, and a lot of them. Wow, what was that FCS? Wow.
Again, I did it.
But because you really just have 3 corners at the furthest ends, they get min sized a ton. So if you're sending them to PSA, don't be surprised if you get it sent back. But it also highlights the ones that do get graded, even if it's a lower grade. It's kind of cool. Not saying that it's worth a ton of money or anything like that. It's just it doesn't happen all the time. It's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah. That's your favorite product. 97 SPX is badass. It's really good looking. 96. That one says 97 on the label, but is that not 96?
No, that's labeled correctly. It's 97, but like I said, technically it could be called a rookie card of Kobe. Okay. It's his first SPX set, but
it's his first SPX. Okay, so we got our product down. What about insert? Your favorite insert from the 90s? I like to hyper focus on inserts. I go inserts here, parallels next. And then I will grab the base cards from Jordan because I'm just trying to build an army. I know you like that. You love quality. Everybody's like quality over quantity. I'm like, no, I'm not going to choose. I love quantity too. So especially if it's got MJ on it. But tell me your favorite insert from the 90s.
Yeah, so we talked about the Hall of You heroes in that 97 SPX. So that's my number 1. Yeah. Again, just purely based on design. I would say a close number 2, 96, 97 EX 2000 net assets. Just another incredibly intricate die cut card. You got Jordan in there, beautiful. But you got a lot of big stars. Penny's in there, KG's in there. It's an Iverson rookie insert. But so that Jordan that you're showing was almost like a mythical card to my brother and I. One of our friends hit one in a pack, and he actually had it scanned and made a giant poster that he put in his room of that card. So it was one of those. Yeah, it was a little bit because he loved it and a little bit because he knew that whenever we were there to do cards, it would taunt us because he'd never trade it. So
yeah. That's a big card. I mean, there's only 39 PSA 10s in the world. So let me ask you this question. As a 90s guy, your frame of reference and your perspective is going to be so different than all of these people, 50% of the hobby that just showed up. And I'm glad they did, and I'm glad a lot have stuck around. But let's say post 2018, specifically probably post 2020, all these new people to the hobby, people are trying to figure out what's high pop. What is a high pop card? We know a 21,000 PSA 10 Prism, 21,000 Pop Zion is a high pop card. We know, I feel like I know a 2,500 pop Luka Doncic Silver Prism PSA 10 to me is a high pop card. What's high? Where's that for you? I know it's a sliding scale, but is there a number where you're like, it's just not that rare? Is it 50? Is it 500? I mean, different people have different perspectives. If you ask Chris, right, Chris Hoge, he's going to say 5 is just too many. If there's 5 of them, it's just like, I don't even want it. Right?
Yeah, no, and you're 100% right, because it is definitely a sliding scale, especially in the 90s, because, and I know we talked a little before we got on camera, but you've done a really good job of highlighting. There's some 90s inserts that you just can't get it to grade well. It's very, very hard. Scoring Kings is one of those that I always talk to people about. Getting a 7 or an 8 is great, but getting a 10 is like, unbelievable. Just really hard to do. So, with that in mind, like a lot of stuff in the 90s, I mean, when we start getting to like 500, that's when I'm like, okay, it's not that hard to get one in that specific grade if I wanted to. So that's a number that I have in mind, but there's some cards that, 100, it's not easy to find. And sometimes it's because they're just locked away in collections, and 100 of them, again, looking at modern cards, a card that's serial number to 100, doesn't really raise anybody's eyebrow. But in the 90s, it did.
There's probably 500 other ones numbered to 100 the same year, the same player. And that, we are definitely going to be on the same page as far as print runs and what's going on now. But here's one we were kind of talking about before we jumped on here, the behind the glass. Was this you, by the way? Was this you at 14,000 right here?
Yeah,
in January, New Year's Day. Was that your New Year's Day gift to yourself?
That was my resolution for the year, to spend $14,000 on a Jordan.
Right away on day one. Well, now you got 364 days. So you're gonna have to just wait to buy your next card. But this is a great example. Like, again, I don't think this card's rare, Jake. I mean, I guess some ultra modern people would say, what I meant to hit here is the pop. Like this behind the glass card, just to show people one of Jordan's early year inserts. I love his early 92, 93 inserts, and I've just pulled up Jordan. There's other players, obviously, but like this card's been graded by PSA 529 and Beckett 217. So you're talking about 750 times the card's been graded ever, and that is a full 3 decades, 30 years. There's only 18 10s out there. It's just fascinating that the PSA 10 could do 14,000. And then if we can I can't find a raw, but a PSA 7 is going to do $30, Jake.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know how many times the number 35 goes into 14,000, but you could have, I know this, you could have all of the PSA 7s or one PSA 10. And it's just crazy, that disparity. We were kind of talking about that before we came on here. What do you think, if you had to pull out your crystal ball and you had to talk about the future of this PSA 10 premium that just, it seems to me that it's getting worse and worse. And when I say worse, I mean more and more.
Wider.
The difference between PSA 10 and PSA 9, the difference between PSA 10 and BGS 9.5 is really the shocking premium. Do you think 5 years from now that premium grows, or do you think it shrinks? Do you think PSA 10 comes back to the field? If you had to guess.
If I had to guess, I would say it comes back to the field. I think a lot of conversations I hear is something going to overtake the PSA 10? I don't see that where things are going right now. I'm going to be completely transparent and say I'm a BGS truther, and a lot of it is nostalgia. I have a BGS order coming back. It should be here in a day or two. Very eager to get it. But I think BGS has a long documented history of some of the complaints, what people don't like about BGS, and I don't think that they have focused as much as people would like to see on fixing some of those. So until some of those things get fixed, and I mean honestly, until they do a better job of marketing what their slabs are, I don't think that we're going to see them, shortening that gap without PSA kind of coming down. I don't think they rise up to it.
Yeah. It's going to fall on PSA coming back more so than BGS rising to catch, right? You don't see
I think
that
so.
happen. It could be both or it could be neither.
Yeah, and looking at some of the other companies, the only other two that I even, give a thought is SGC and CSG. I think we've seen, what SGC is, and SGC is a great grading option. And there are certain cards that belong, I think, in an SGC holder. But I don't think that we're going to, at least for 90s cards, I don't think we're going to see an SGC 10. Yeah, I don't think we're going to see it get to that level. And CSG, I think, is a great company. I really trust them. I like their slabs a lot.
I like their slabs a lot.
Their slabs are beautiful.
But I've seen them and I've held them. Jake, they're beautiful. Aesthetically, I think it's the best looking slab out there. Well, I'll tell you what, Tag is the best looking slab. Have you held one yet?
I haven't held one. I would love to. Yeah, I would love to.
They got a ways to go with the secondary market issue. If it's going to make your card worth less, you're not going to put it in a Tag slab now. Right. It may not be that way forever, but right now, Tag's not really.
Yeah, and time is really the biggest enemy of both CSG and Tag, because they just don't have enough longevity and history. I think that will just be a matter of time before they get that familiarity with people and trust. But we can't really project what that will look like, because it just takes one big goof before people are like, yeah, forget it. So
I know they're treading on thin ice, as they say. In Louisiana, we have a phrase, and it's first to the plate eats. And PSA and BGS were here first. BGS was actually here first, but PSA and BGS were here first. It's just hard to undo what's been done. The set registry is a much bigger deal that people don't really talk about. That is a huge factor in what's driving PSA right now. That it means a lot to a lot of people. I don't partake because I didn't know what it was or that it even existed when I started collecting. And now it's just too late for me to go back and use it or mess with it. And like you, I love BGS. I have a ton of really high-end. My best cards are in BGS slabs, honestly. And BGS is huge for me. So, for that reason, the PSA set registry never appeals to me. Do you mess at all with the PSA set registry?
No, I've thought about it, especially for some of my pennies that are in PSA slabs. But I'm like, sometimes I have to budget my time and what I want to put my time towards. And that's just not something that really gets me too jazzed to spend my time on it right now.
You don't want to key input for hundreds of hours your collection retroactively. Yes, I'm with you, Jay. No. You and I are on the same page. Wouldn't it be nice to know? Well, here's the deal. Like, you may like to know, where do you rank amongst Penny Hardaway collectors on Penny Hardaway master list, but you're not really going to get an answer if, a lot of your bangers, which we're about to look at in a second, spoiler alert, are in BGS slabs, It's almost like penalizing you for not putting them in PSA, but that is what drives a lot of the PSA value.
Definitely.
All right, we've talked about product. We talked about insert. The net assets is awesome. Tell me about your favorite parallel from the 90s.
So, boy, it's so tough. There's so many great ones. Mm-hmm. This is not everybody's cup of tea, but so I would say my favorite, and there's a reason for it, is not aesthetically based, but it is a nice looking one. So 99 2000 Top Stadium Club Chrome, first day issue refractors. Each one of those.
Video on this. I saw your video on this.
Each one is numbered to 25. There are a lot that are out there without serial numbers, so you have to be careful. There are some that are, just missing different things that surely were, backdoored, some way, shape, or form. But the allure of a 90s card that's numbered to 25. It's not as rare as the PMG green, so let's not get that twisted. There are other 90s ones that are numbered to 25, but that's one that really stands out to me. I should say very late 90s. So there's a couple others in 99 2000 that are like insert parallels that are numbered to 25, so just as rare, but this is a base parallel. But also, like, I got a Rod Strickland for Christmas as a kid, so I have some nostalgia built up, and then I was, a little spoiler alert again, I was able to get the Penny in a high grade. So having that also makes it a little bit more special to me, but it's just, the difficulty of finding them. But also for a card from the 90s, the number 25, they don't break the bank.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not going to find a Jordan. There's no Jordan in there. The best
no Jordan
is Kobe. But, the Kobe, compared to other Kobe's of the similar type of scarcity, it's not on the same plane.
Yeah, I think it's lying in the weeds, man. I saw you did a video where you pulled that out and you were telling me how much you liked it, and I was like, I didn't even know Stadium Club had refractors. I certainly didn't know they had serial numbered refractors, not that low either. So that was again, every time I watch your channel, I learn something new from the 90s. So we got about 15-ish, maybe 20 left. I want to see your five biggest pennies. I want to see your 5 biggest cards. So let's go through those. Start with 5. Let's work our way to number 1. I know what 1 is, but the people watching don't. But they're going to recognize it when they see it, and it's impressive. It's a very low pop, incredibly miserable pack odds card. Yes. Really high pack odds for that card. And I don't have it in the Jordan, but at some point I'm going to have to figure out a way to get it. I'm kind of dreading that from a financial perspective. Right. So take us through 5 through 1. Show us what you got.
All right. So if we're going to start from 5, so picking number 5 is kind of difficult. So if we're looking at value, a lot of these don't come up for sale. So, and I don't have it in hand. This is one that's in that BGS order. So I'm going to put in the number 5 slot the 98.99 UD Choice Star Quest Gold of Penny. These I think these are all going to be Penny. So those are numbered to 100. A lot of nostalgia with the card for myself, but also it's a set that a lot of 90s collectors are really starting to get interested in. I mean, it's not like it's a recent thing in the last couple of months. It's been a couple of years that's been percolating, and some of the big guys are scooping them up. They just don't show up often. They're very hard to track down, but also they have a lot of condition issues, a lot of edge wear. I had a shot at one a couple of years ago that had a really bad, top edge, and some foil loss and stuff that, I really wanted the card, but I also wanted it in a condition that wasn't going to bother me. I didn't want something that's just kind of like, well, I have it for now until I find a better looking copy.
Yeah.
So finally did
that. Jake, that's numbered 100, right?
Yeah.
So in that year, Star Quest, I think they have blue, green, red, and gold. That's it. If I'm not, maybe I'm wrong. Is that right?
No, that's correct. The blue is the base. The green is the 2-star, and then you have the red is a 3-star.
And this card, I mean, other than the picture pane window in the middle, which looks like gloss paper, is the same crap that's on the 1997 PMGs, which make them so condition sensitive. It's the same like friable foil where any mishandling of the card or failure to preserve it immediately when you pull it, and sometimes even it's already not preservable when you pull it. It just makes it super condition sensitive. There's been a lot of talk in the Jordan group chat that I'm in lately about this card and how important it is and how these guys think very highly of it. And certainly it's a card that I don't have, but I'd like to get one day. I did just recently pick up the blue and the red and the green Jordan. So
I love the red with the color match.
Yeah. A little different. Yeah. All right. What's card number 4? What you got number 4?
So before anybody who knows me knows I have to do honorable mention. So before I get into card number 4, the tie for number 5, another one that's in that BGS order. And I know the grade because so I got it. It was already graded by BGS, but it didn't have the subgrades, which annoys me to no end. So it's the 97-98 Top Stadium Club, the Triumvirate Illuminator in a BGS 9.5 of Penny. And that's a pop one. There are none higher in any grading company. There are no PSA 10s. I think there might be one PSA 9.
Right there?
Yeah, so that's the Luminous.
That's mislabeled.
It is mislabeled. Yep. I saw that when that came up and I was like, oh well, somebody
There it is. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Well, it's Tim. That's Tim Hardaway.
That's all right. And actually, so here's the interesting thing. So that's the luminescent. So there's 3 levels.
Oh, you're killing me.
I know. Well, and so this is one of the fun things with the Illuminators. They are so incredibly hard to find. So Michael Moeller, Double X the Beast on Instagram, does a great job of estimating print runs of cards that aren't serial numbered from the 90s. He's a wealth of knowledge on 90s stuff as well. Was a Grant Hill super collector. So he has estimated that the print run of the Illuminators from that set are between 60 and 70 copies each. So extraordinarily hard to track down, but also they're very hard to identify. So I don't have that.
Jake, I'll raise my hand. These things confuse the hell out of me, dude. Yeah. They confuse that. People send me pictures all the time. Hey, do you have this yet? I'm like, I don't have it, but I don't know where it fits because is there 9 potential deals in the triumvirate? Is that right for each player?
Well, it depends on the player. So here's the funny thing. Here's a little bit of a teaser. I wrote an article for the BCF Basketball Card Fanatic that's going to be coming out soon, I think.
Good.
So to try to help people identify and understand some of the confusion. So let's break it down for those that are watching, right? There are 2 series. There's Series 1 and Series 2. There are 2 different designs. Series 1 has like a hardcore, background to it. And they were based on 3 groups, or groups of 3 from each team. So a triumvirate of players from that team.
There you go.
And not every team was in there, right? So you've got certain teams that had 3 guys and some that didn't. So for example, Penny, not in Series 1. But KG is with the Timberwolves. Jordan is in Series 1. The Knicks have some cards in Series 1. So, and the Illuminators in Series 1 are different than the Illuminators in Series 2. So in Series 2, you pulled up the Penny and you pulled up the Tim Hardaway. Those are what the Series 2 look like. I call it kind of the storm background because it looks dark and cloudy. And you got kind of lightning bolts.
Scoring King kind of deal, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. But Scoring King with a die cut or crazy die cut.
Yeah. Refractor Scoring King's die cut, yeah.
And like you saw in that Tim Hardaway, you've got a refractor finish on the front. The Illuminator is printed on an acetate card stock. It has a refractor on the front and a refractor on the back. But because that card stock in Series 2 is so dark, it is very hard to tell that it's an acetate unless you're really looking close. But you've also got die cuts all over the place. So it's like sometimes you're like, am I able to see through it because it's cut here? Or is it because it's an acetate? So the telltale on Series 2 really is when you flip it over on the back.
Yeah.
But again, all of those factors that it's hard to identify, it's got that mystique around it, but also the estimate is that there's less than 100 in existence. They were also a retail-only exclusive insert. So some of those,
serious?
Yeah, all of the triumvirates were retail-only.
I had no idea. Okay.
So some of those could have been lost to the sands of time, and kids like me getting their sticky fingers on them at Walmart. What is this? I don't know. It's in my garage, my basement, my closet forever.
Yeah.
Who knows?
The retention rate of all 90s cards from a retail would be a significantly lower percentage than hobby, like significantly lower, because people didn't know what they were doing when they bought. I mean, it was moms buying it for kids or kids buying it with a few bucks, whereas hobby, you know what you were looking for. If you're buying a hobby box, even in the 90s back then, it was expensive enough where you knew what you were looking for, and if you pulled it, you knew you found something, right? Okay, so where does that leave us? Number 4 on the list?
So we're at number 4. Yep.
Okay.
Right. So here we've got the next 3 I have in hand. So I can show some stuff. All right. So we have got 98.99 Topps Chrome. This is the Apparitions Refractor. So let's see if I can. The refractor is really the piece that is just gorgeous on these because of all the colors here. That refractor just adds something really cool. And these are serial number to 100. We probably won't be able to see that. I don't know if people can see that, but so that is one that I have long dreamt of ever since I saw the Apparition set.
Yeah.
I saw plenty of the base cards as a kid, and I learned that there was a refractor, and I could only imagine how cool they would look. So last summer, I was actually able to close a deal with another penny collector, and got that. Just so happened to also be a PSA 9, which is a nice bonus, but I would have been just as happy if it was raw. So the PSA 9 definitely adds to the value of it. So I don't know. I don't know if it would be in my top 5 if it wasn't a PSA 9, but it would still be a really important card to me.
Knocking on the door, yeah. And that's an insert parallel for those watching.
Yep.
Like we talk about what's an insert, what's a parallel. That's an insert parallel because it's a refractor serial numbered of an insert. There's also a base version of the apparitions. I recently bought a raw apparitions complete base set. It looked clean, and it was. I actually did really well with PSA and moved some of those along.
Nice.
The ones that I wanted. So number 3, let's talk about number 3.
Number 3, we've got 97-98 NBA hoops. This is the high voltage 500 volts again of Penny. This is in an SGC 8.5. And this is just such a cool, hollow foil pattern. It's almost like these little like jagged wheels. I don't know how to describe them. Just a really cool card that I had always thought would just be a little bit out of my reach. And another one that I found in Atlantic City last year, it was sitting there. I got in early, and I'm really thankful I did, because I don't think that card would have been sitting there much longer. I know some of the people that were in the room, and I'm sure one of them would have grabbed it. So
yeah, they'd have grabbed it and extorted you and tried to sell it to you for more.
Probably,
they would have done, Jake, right?
Yep. Well, and the lucky thing too is when I went to that booth, I talked to the guy. He was set up with Justin 610 Sports Cards.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of familiarity there. And I happened to have, I think I traded the Jordan Intense in a PSA 10 and a little bit of cash on top of it to get it. So, if it was a fully cash deal, it might have been a little bit different. So it's fun to have those stories and be like, I'm glad I had the trade power to get it. Because I didn't think I'd be able to. And in an 8.5, it's definitely not the easiest card to grade. So an 8.5 is nice. I don't know. I mean, looking at it, I don't think it's the strongest 8.5. I wouldn't be too confident to send it off to another grading company. So it's going to stay in this slab.
Yeah.
But another one of those that it's numbered to 500, but it doesn't. These don't comp as often as
there's
you
a
expect
rumor.
for a
Yeah,
card
you know the rumor. There's not.
Yeah.
I think that the numbers back it up. I don't think there's 500. I don't know what happened or why. I don't think there's 500.
Yeah, and it wouldn't surprise me if at some point somebody actually has some concrete knowledge as to why or what happened. But yeah, it's just it's the numbers. Yeah, they don't back it up.
They don't back it up. Number two.
So this is one of my all-time favorites. So the 97-98 EX 2001 Jambalaya. This is in a BGS 9. And the camera is not going to do this thing justice, because the people that know me know I don't love lenticular cards.
What's the centering on that, Jake?
So this one, the centering on it is a 9.5. This card.
That's what I thought.
This card is 0.5 away on the edges of being a 9.5. So it's 9.5 on centering, 10 on corners because there are no corners.
There are none. It's always 10.
Surface is 9.5, which is tough on these, and the edges are an 8.5. This is the highest graded BGS 9 when you look at the subs, again, because it's just that 0.5 away from being a min, or I think as you call it, I like this term, a mixed gem, because you have that 10 there. But yeah, that was one of those cards that as a kid was like the pinnacle, and until the day I got it, it was the number one card on my must get list at some point. And I got it at the Chicago National, and it was one of those that I had found another collector who had an absolute grail penny that sought me out, got it to me. We made a deal on it, and I was like, this is my get of the National. And a day later, not even 24 hours later, another penny collector came up to me. We're talking. He saw that card. He's like, what's it going to take to get it? And it was one of those that I felt really torn, but the guy that I got it from completely understood, because he's a super collector as well. And he was just like, look, you have your priority of cards, and the one that you got from me wasn't as high as that one, and I totally get it. And there were no hard feelings. So I definitely was torn on doing that, but I never for a second would think twice about I would do this trade again over and over and over and over again. I will get that other card back, because that's
it's funny. It's like a million miles away on your camera screen, and it's teeny tiny. But right when I saw it, I know the biggest issue with those is always centering, because you can tell. First of all, there's nowhere to hide it because it's a circular, oval centering, and I could even tell when it's this little bitty. With my terrible vision, I was like, that has a good centering. That's why I asked you about it. I could tell right from the jump. I was like, that's unique, and so. And I think that's, and you can back me up on this, a lot of people grade jambalayas with BGS because you get that automatic 10 for corners because there are none. And so that's
Yeah.
a big bump right there. So it kind of enhances your chances of getting a 9.5.
Yep, definitely. I have seen one that got a 9.5 on corners.
Did you?
I can't remember which one it was. It wasn't one of the bigger name players, but I was looking at it. I'm just like,
I'm cracking that and sending it back.
I'm cracking that and sending it somewhere.
Yeah,
because it's just like I've seen that also happen with like the 97, 98 game jerseys. Again, those have not as dramatically rounded, but those have rounded corners.
Yes,
there are no
credit
card.
card. Yeah, like not a credit
if you're
card.
not, if you're not
like
getting
a library card.
corners,
Yeah.
Somebody doesn't know what they're doing. So
right. Yeah, I'm cracking that and resubbing it to get that half point if it bumps my overall for sure.
Yeah.
Number one, we're at number one. I know it's a big one because I've seen it, but share your baby here. Let's see what you got.
So number one, again, I don't have this one in hand. This will be with me soon, but it's with BGS. So it is the 97-98 Fleer Ultra Stars Gold, and it's in a BGS 9. And so you're probably asking, it's in a BGS 9. Why is it with BGS? So I bought it without subgrades, and that drives me nuts, just like the Triumvirate. So I sent it to BGS, and I'm like, give me the subgrades. I don't care what they are. I just want them because it would bother me to not have them. So that was one that actually I had made a list of my top 10 wish list cards last year, and that was number one on my wish list. And it was funny because I was talking to Josh, Cardboard Chronicles, and he had this card and got rid of it, and then he realized that he really wanted it back. So he and I were talking. He's like, I'm trying to get one. So I said, okay, I'm gonna clear the runway. You go get yours. I'm sure there's other people that are going for it, but I'm not gonna be another person bidding one up.
Yeah,
you get yours, I'll get mine later. And he actually helped me because I was a little bit short on cash, and he helped me get the cash to get the card when it was at National in Atlantic City. Which I was forever grateful for. And it's just one of those cards that when you see it in person, I keep looking at it. It's like the Jambalaya. Those are two cards and the 500 volts. So three cards that I just keep looking at, and they're just beautiful. They captivate your eye. And there's so many different things to see when you're looking at the Ultra Stars Gold. If you haven't held one in hand, it's really hard to describe. But that hollow foil pattern with the embossing is gorgeous. And this is just me, I'm biased, but I feel as though the picture that they used for Penny, the way that it's centered there with the star in the background, it really is like the perfect image for that card to really highlight all the really cool design features.
It screams 90s, dude. This card screams 90s. The pinstripe, Orlando, some of the greatest uniforms of all time right there, right? And then his head is like perfectly epicenter in the middle of that star. It's almost like it's resonating like a halo out of his head.
Right.
It's awesome. It is awesome. And look, here's the deal. People watching may or may not know the deal with Beckett and the subgrades or no subgrades, but if you bought the card with no subgrades and you paid the nominal fee to put the subgrades, you just built equity into that card. There's no question that you bought it for less than it was worth if it had subgrades, because it didn't. And all you had to do was be a little patient, turn around, send it to BGS, get the subgrades. And I think you added equity to the card, and not that you're an investor, but there's truth to that. And that's a move that a lot of people make in the hobby, is buying Beckett's, cards with no subgrades, and then they just do the work behind it. So
yeah, it drives me nuts. I don't understand the logic.
I can't stand
anybody.
It.
Yeah, I don't know if I was sending a card to Beckett, like, what's the point of sending a card to Beckett and not getting the subgrades? Like that's the sauce.
It's the only reason to send it to Beckett. Yeah, like how much more does it cost? $30?
Not even. I mean, now I think it's a $10 difference.
How cheap? Like, especially a card like that. Like if you're saying that card, or it could be any player, that card, why would you not get the subgrades? It makes no sense at all.
I asked the dealer when I bought it. So I saw it day one. The first day, again, I was there a little bit early. I saw it and I was just like, oh my goodness, what do I need to do? So the whole week, I knew where it was. I wrote down the booth, and a couple of my buddies that knew it was there were like, you want to go and look at it? I said, no, I don't want to go look at it until I'm ready to go buy it.
Yeah.
So I just would stay away from it. And I was so nervous because it was like right at the end of the day, Saturday, that I went over there. And I was so nervous walking up there. And actually, Stiff Arm from the Card Ladder team has it chronicled on their last day of the national video. I was nervous it wasn't going to be there. I was nervous somebody came and swooped in and picked it up. But I think because it didn't have the subgrades, that was a deterrent for some people.
Agreed. 100%. Agreed. That's awesome. Well, a sad story. All 5 and the honorable mention, I don't have any of those with Jordan on it. So you just happened to ruin my day. I mean, you picked the 5 beautiful cards that I don't have Michael for. So
well, Penny's a little bit harder to get than Jordan.
A little bit. But either way, yeah, that's fantastic. And look, here's the deal. And the people watching and listening, pay attention because Jake just talked about his 5 biggest cards in his collection. Never once did he mention how much anything, nothing about numbers. And so that's something that's unique about Jake. I throw numbers at people because some people like to digest numbers in the investing side of it. But part of the beauty of your channel and a reason why I think a lot of people should tune in is that there is nothing about your channel that, is clickbaity. It's here's the cards. Here's what they're about. Here's what I think of them. Here's what, you may not know about them. It's a library of wealth and knowledge. And it's not about the flip game or the buy and sell game or the investment game. And that's a welcome diversion to a hobby that is hyper-focused on money and fraud and hobby drama and all the crap that goes with it. And so that's we would normally kill it here because that was a great exit. But I've got something that's the most important thing we've talked about is we haven't talked about your Orlando Magic, right? And neither has anybody else this whole season. So let's talk about. I want to know your all-time Orlando Magic starting 5, and you can play people out of position, but they still got to make it work on the court. So you can play people out of position if you insist on it. We'll talk through it. At the point, do we need to talk about it?
No,
we got 5 minutes. We know who's running the points.
Yeah.
Jameer Nelson. No.
Scott Skiles. Yeah.
Not Darrell Armstrong. Not Jameer Nelson. It's the one and only Penny. We've talked about Penny on this show, so Penny's at the 1. The 2 should be easy. Who's playing the 2?
T-Mac. It's going to be
T-Mac is the 2. He's an oversized 2. He'd be an absolute animal, right? You could play him at the 3. He can guard the 1, 2, 3, whatever. T-Mac is clearly the 2. Who's at the 5 for you?
Shaq. It's got to be Shaq.
Don't even need to discuss it. We're on the same page so far. This is where things can get a little haywire, right? And I know you're an Orlando Magic lifer, and I'm just an NBA basketball lifer. So this we can go a lot of different directions. I've got 4 names. I might be forgetting somebody, but I got 4 names that stick out. Is there somebody else that you think's a no-brainer?
No, I don't think there's any no-brainers left.
Okay, so who do you put at the 4? This is going to dictate where you go with this team. And you're going to choose with your heart, not with your head. I know you
absolutely.
are. So tell me who your 4 is.
So I'm going Horace Grant at the 4.
I knew it.
Yep.
I knew you would.
The goggles give you an extra 10 points on the scoreboard.
There you go. Yeah.
No, but here's my argument. I know we don't have a lot of time, but DeWitt, as I like to call him, is a knucklehead. He was great in Orlando for a few years, but he needs to be the center of attention. And when I have that team, we know where the center of attention is. I don't want any nonsense in the locker room, and also like his maturity has shown throughout his career, but also his game is fairly limited. So I would love him on the defensive side of the ball, but offensively, he just clogs up the middle, and he refused to work on his game outside of the paint. So,
and here's the deal: if you've got Shaquille O'Neal, the second or most dominant player that's ever played the sport of basketball, you're playing inside out. And that doesn't make sense with Dwight Howard because he has no out. He has no out at all. He's the inside out. So I would have gone a different direction at the 4, but let's see who you have at the 3, and maybe it'll all make sense. Who's your 3?
So number 3 is one where I'm really torn, but I'm going to have to give the nod a little bit with my heart, but I'm going to go Dennis Scott.
Wow. Okay.
I want a guy who's just going to light it up from 3, and why I'm torn is because I could see a good argument for Rashard Lewis or Hedo Turkoglu, because they can do the same thing they did when they went on that championship run. But I think Dennis Scott had a more proven track record of doing it, and if he had played in the modern era, I think his numbers from downtown would have been much more inflated. Huge.
No, if he played right now, his numbers would have been huge. Yeah. He was begging for more 3-point field goal attempts in that era. It's interesting. Yeah. So Howard out. He doesn't fit with Shaq. But for the same reason that you said no Howard, I got to find a way to put Rashard Lewis on the floor. So Rashard Lewis could play the 3 or the 4.
Yep.
So I'd have Rashard Lewis in there. And then because I've got Penny, T-Mac, Rashard Lewis, and Shaq to score the hell out of it, I'm going with what I think could have possibly been the greatest Orlando Magic player of all time, but for 57 ankle surgeries, I will put Grant Hill at my 3 because he can be a secondary ball handler or really a tertiary ball handler. He does a little bit of everything. He's the greatest locker room guy in the universe. He should be our next president. Everything about Grant Hill would be that glue guy right there. And that leaves out Aaron Gordon and that leaves out Dwight Howard. So
yeah, neither one of those guys are making my list, but
they're not making my list either. So we were close. We were really close. It just depends
I like the Grant Hill pick. If he was healthy, I think you're 100% right.
Healthy is a no-brainer. Yeah, no question. He's one of those great what ifs. Where would his career have been had he not ever gotten injured? Awesome. That's a pretty damn good starting 5. Jake, appreciate you joining, man. We went over, but I knew we would because once we start talking about cards, it's hard to stop. So we're over the hour mark, but that is a trend on my channel. I know you have nice, concise, well-thought, efficient videos. Mine are a disaster. We don't go in any particular direction. We talk forever, and this is no exception, but I think people are going to like it. Again, just to remind you all, I want to pull it up again. If you want to reach out to Jake, because you have one of those luminous, triumvirate, luminescent illuminators or whatever the hell they are, Jake's your guy. Here's his IG page right here. This is Jake's YouTube channel, which is fantastic. I am following in his footsteps, just trying to keep up. Lots of great. His thumbnails are all similar, and it's a home run. He puts his face on there. I keep my face out of it. So to each his own, we all do it different ways. But Jake, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming on the show. This will definitely not be the last time. We'll make it at least annually, if not biannually. And I'm gonna see you in Chicago, I'm sure.
I got my hotel. I'm ready.
And I've got my hotel. I didn't get one close. I'm like 1.6 miles away. But I will be on the lookout for any pennies that I didn't see in your top 5 that you don't have that I know are relevant and important. And I'm sure I'm not going to be the only eyes and ears you have there looking for penny cards. You've got like an army of people that know you collect them. So we'll try to get them into your PC.
Always appreciate it. Always a pleasure.
Cool. Stay in touch. All right, Jake. Thanks for joining. Thank you guys for watching. Keep collecting. Stay positive in the hobby. And peace.